You're listening to the Ballet Piano Podcast, lifting the lid on dance accompaniment.
Hello, listeners, and welcome back to this episode of the Ballet Piano Podcast for 2024. My name is Chris Hobson. To my left, as always, is Akiko Hobson.
Hello.
Matt Gregory.
Hello, listeners.
And the absolutely gorgeous, divine David Yao.
Hi, everybody.
I sound like a teacher, don't I? Say, oh, I love my teacher. He's so divine. He's beautiful. He's amazing. Anyway, but David is all of those things and more.
And you get the most attention.
Always.
Yes. He's probably wrote the most lines in this classroom.
This week, we're going back to our little tips and tricks and things like that, and sort of referencing the 10 Commandments that we did a couple of years ago or a few years ago. And on this one, we're talking about what it's like to be a new musician in class with relatively little experience and how you survive it. Because it's like, I'm going to sell this job really well. It's a baptism of fire.
Oh, yeah.
My first ballet class, I remember I thought I was filling the room out. I thought I was giving it. And the teacher went, yeah, he's giving you the woodwind on the top and you need to be the percussion and the brass sections. I've clearly not done what I was meant to do in this one. But I went into it really unprepared from the contemporary background side. So I thought I was ready to fill it all out. I thought I knew what I was doing. It actually turns out I didn't have a clue. And I had a real load of work to do. What did you know when you went into your first ballet class, Akiko?
The free class.
Yeah.
I don't know, because I started off watching other people playing and other people teaching. And then when I was watching, I was playing for RAD syllabus classes. So I didn't need to improvise or anything like this. But as I watch more, you get more ideas.
Matt, we've referenced this in the earlier episodes when we introduced ourselves back in season 1. You knew the ballet class when you started.
I did.
You were just working on your technique.
I just couldn't play the piano well enough. But that said, I didn't have a lot of tunes. Even though I know the language of ballet, I just got a fake book, a classical fake book. I remember just having a little pad in like a plastic folder, like about 10, 15 tunes. Yeah. And then when I'd sort of learnt those, I'd put them to side and then grab some more. And I just tried to play all of those in class, tried to get them into class.
Could you improvise?
No. And I don't think I can now. It's all right. I'm all right. But I'm not like the great improvisers that are in London.
Improvisation.
Yeah, I use, if I don't know my B section, I'll use the A section to improvise.
Yeah.
Or actually some things that I've just made up over the years sort of become my tunes, which I'm sure we all have done that. But yeah, my first class with Errol Pickford. Bless him, he was so... I had third year ladies at an upper school, and it was crazy because they were probably expecting me to just be amazing, and it was dreadful. I couldn't stride, you know what I mean? I had no left hand. It was really bad.
Oh my God, very fast ballet class is so tiring, isn't it?
I just remember it, yeah.
You get so exhausted after one class.
I mean, even after plie is a very long exercise, isn't it? As we all know. It's, you go like, how do I fill out 128 bars? If it's about, it's a long exercise, isn't it?
I think I probably did, stopping prematurely.
Yeah.
Because I think I'd probably just run out of music. Yeah, it was.
But you know what we didn't have what I didn't have when I started back in the early 2000s was YouTube and things like World Ballet. So like my first sort of tip, if you like, whatever we're going to call it, for a new pianist who wants to become a ballet pianist is utilize the world that's available for you. And with that, I mean, YouTube, pay for some video on demand, even if you want to. And things like Apple Music and Spotify, Amazon Music and all those other things, because you can hear things like the Ballet Piano Podcast, music for class. You can hear how we play stuff, but not only that, watch the free stuff on YouTube. Watch it, and you can go like, what is the teacher saying? And then why does the pianist play what they play? And then you can sit there and try and marry these two things together, I think. That
and
would
also
be,
you can learn the steps as well, the ballet terminology.
Because that wasn't around when I started, and it wasn't around when you started. YouTube and ballet classes, World Ballet Day and all those things were not a thing, were they? And they're there now. And you've got to take advantage of this whole...
Yeah. Whenever I wasn't playing for a class, I was watching someone else play for a class. Feeling really inferior and inadequate. But then, getting better the more you do it.
I remember downloading on my very basic iPhone. I just typed on the App Store Ballet something, and I found this little app said explain like the dictionary of ballet terminology. So I downloaded it, tried to understand, but it explains with letters.
Yeah.
So you can't actually picture the move. Whereas like now you can just watch the video and then you exactly know what Ronjong is, what jet is. So yeah, that helps, doesn't it? Yeah.
So as a newbie pianist, you could sort of sit there, almost make a spreadsheet if you're a geek like I am, or come up with a book, and say like, 2/4, 3/4, and 4/4, and just listen to what people play, and how they play.
Start collecting music,
And
either on an
Facebook.
iPad or in paper, whatever works for you. Start collecting music. You can't ever have too many tunes, can you?
No.
I don't think so,
No.
unless you're an improviser.
Yeah.
But even then, I imagine like tunesmiths rely on improvising sometimes. So I imagine even the improvisers must play a tune every now and then. I don't know. That sounds like a diss to improvisers. It's not
No, I know.
in any way. But yeah, knowing the basic sort of fundamentals of what ballet requires for the exercise is going to give you a whole step up as a newbie pianist. If you go in there with a teacher, you go, okay, I don't really know what I'm doing, but I know that I've got 40 pieces of music that I've learned from YouTube videos and people playing on the internet. So hopefully I'll be able to make an informed choice about the music that I'll play for you. And then don't be scared of making a mistake. David, in the same way as a teacher, when you're a new teacher, you just
fine.
Be graceful in mistakes.
Just get on. Yeah.
No
We're
one's
all
perfect.
learning. Yes, absolutely, totally.
So don't be scared of making a mistake. I mean, like, how many mistakes? 21 years, I think it is, into the game. I still make mistakes, and luckily enough, I've got broad enough shoulders now where I can take it, and I don't take it personally. But I still get annoyed at myself for making mistakes.
What mistakes? Because you've read the teacher wrong.
Because I've read the teacher wrong.
Yeah,
so
but that's the beauty of it being live. It's
That's the
not.
thing, yeah.
It's not a perfect
And
finished
also,
product. Class is never perfect.
Yeah,
No.
and it doesn't matter
No.
because we're all professionals. We're all going into this studio. So just because you've started to play an introduction for a 3/4 for a fondue exercise, and actually what the teacher wanted was a habanero, but they didn't set it.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter because you've wasted 4 seconds at the time. And you go, very sorry. And then you play the introduction for your go-to habanero.
Yeah.
And
You just
life
have,
is good.
the good teachers will probably just have a giggle about it.
Yeah.
The down to earth ones.
I think.
No one's died.
Exactly.
Exactly.
It's dancing at the end of the day.
And realize with that every class is going to be different. We referenced this in the last episode, David, when we were talking about having different, the previous episodes with a different pianist in classes. Every class is going to be different, and you could play the same music for the same teacher 5 days in a row. And because it's live, your class could be on Monday morning and you're sluggish. It could be on Wednesday afternoon after lunch, and you've got that hump day thing that everybody calls it. And people are tired, or it could be Friday morning, everybody just wants to get on with it and leave at lunchtime. Every class is going to be different. There's no perfect tempo for an exercise. It's sort of like there's sort of generically accepted tempos, I think, isn't there?
That's the beauty of live music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the reason we do it.
So I always think that, look at the dancers and look at the teacher, because you can communicate better. And then I don't know if somebody who need the music in front of you to read, and it's a bit difficult to constantly look at the teachers and dancers. I don't know.
Is that difficult to do as a pianist, as a new pianist learning
Well,
how to play?
I think that's nerves, isn't it?
Is it? Yeah.
Possibly. I don't know, because I've never really played with music for class.
yeah,
No, I've not. Once I learned enough tunes, I sort of ditched
you don't need
it.
the music, do you?
No.
Yeah,
And actually, I only got an iPad last year.
yeah.
So for, let's say, 10 years of my career, let's say the first 5 years, I was always introducing tunes into class. But then for about 10 years, I didn't use anything.
Yeah.
And
I'd learn things at home.
Right.
Yeah.
And, make sure they were there enough without music and then
so
just put
it's
them
just a
into
reference,
class.
isn't it, for
Yeah,
you? So
yeah.
I don't need to read and play. So I always have enough capacity to look what's going on in front
Yeah.
of me in the studio with the dancers, and I can actually make eye contact with the teachers to know whether it's okay or when it's to stop and things. But I know there are some ballet pianists who has lots of music to read.
Yeah.
I don't know how they manage actually.
That's quite limiting, would you say?
I
It
don't
doesn't give you
know.
the freedom, does it, if you're bound by the dots?
But I wonder how much of that, if you've done that for many years, is that like it's a
Security.
doggy blanket, it's a safety
Yeah.
blanket, it's security
Yeah.
for you, maybe.
Yeah.
And if that's your class, you've done it for so long, that's just how you do it.
Yeah.
Maybe.
If you're new coming into this and you feel more comfort having the music in front of you, is it a good exercise to now and again to look away from that music?
Yeah. Or to try and sort of do the split eye thing. Like if you're accompanying a vocalist or a violinist, you can't just have your eyes buried in the score.
Right.
That's true.
Because you need to have something where even if you've not got the eye contact, you're reading the body language of the singer or the soloist. And ballet's the same. It's just the difference is you're accompanying an ensemble, you're not accompanying a soloist. I think with that, and that's not doing an injustice to the job because we are an accompanist. Ultimately, that's the job. But
What's it like when somebody asks you to play a specific, to sight read a specific piece of music there and then on the spot? Is that stressful as a pianist?
dead scary. It depends on
love
what
to
it
know.
is.
Well, yeah, because I've been doing this a lot with a certain teacher, but it's a younger school class. It's not a company situation.
Right.
This is the thing. There are sort of different stakes within the job, isn't there?
Yeah.
And I would say to any new ballet pianist, if they were lucky enough to get a job at a very local dance school where they're learning syllabus, that might be a very good place to start. And then I would try, I don't want to, say that, some of my work is more important than others. But like the stakes are very high in a company class, for example, on stage.
Yeah.
Whereas if it's a school class where they're in training, where you've got more time,
Yeah, time to think.
time to think, time
Yeah.
to look at music, then the stakes are slightly lower.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if someone says to me, "Oh, improvise this," or if a certain teacher says, "Oh, I want this for this exercise," I'll quickly text Chris and Akiko and say, "Have you got this?" And send it on the iPad. I've got the bar to look at it. And then so it's less stressful than if someone says, at a company class, for example, or whatever it might be.
I think as a teacher, if you know you've got a newbie pianist coming in, try and be as accommodating as you can be. In the episode where we were talking with, if you're a new teacher, the pianist will do their best. So you've got to do the best to help the teacher. And I know that's going to be a pain in the backside for a teacher sometimes, isn't it? Because you've also got to do the training. And I know you've got to get through the exercise, you've got to get through the students' training, or you've got to get through the class. But there's got to be somehow a little bit of understanding in there to know that we all made mistakes. We all screwed it up at one point.
Yeah.
And we'll continue to do so sometimes.
And because I worked a lot with Andrew when I first started, and you just need that teacher that's going to let you make your mistakes and cut your teeth and find your way.
Yes.
And where it doesn't matter if you've made a mistake.
And sometimes you come up with even better than what you planned by just like going through that process.
Yeah, and I sort of remember, even though I'd been a dancer and I knew the structure of ballet class, if something wasn't quite right, Andrew would, really sing his rhythm or explain to me, this is how a polonaise is broken up, 1 and a 2. So then I'd go away and quickly think, okay, I'll write that out and then improvise something or find a tune. So I think if you're lucky enough, newbie pianists, work with that teacher who's going to help you, even sort of privately in a studio. I've had new teachers text me and say, "Oh, I'm doing this course," or "I don't know about the different rhythms and stuff. Can we get in a studio, just you and I?" And then play different options for them. And I say, "Okay, well, you set that exercise, sing me something. This is what I would play. Now try something new."
It's better to communicate, isn't it?
Yeah.
Always better to ask than unsure.
Yeah.
Like both sides.
As a newbie pianist, and I say this having done it, don't oversell your knowledge, because until you've gone through it, like we said this with the teachers, there's no shortcut to gaining the experience.
Yeah.
You've got to learn, unfortunately, by going through some of these awkward situations where it hasn't worked.
Yeah.
Don't oversell yourself.
Yeah.
Be honest, because I oversold myself with many things over the years, and I came unstuck a couple of times, especially at the start in the first couple of years. It's like, I can do that. I was like,
actually,
17,
me
I can take on the
too.
world.
Yeah,
and I
me
couldn't.
too.
And I looked like an absolute twit sometimes. And you'd have loved to have seen that, wouldn't you, Richard? Such a. But yeah, don't oversell it. Be honest about your ability and go, I can play the piano very well. I want to do this, but this is the experience I have. But I'm prepared to work and learn and go forward.
And I would say don't fear the fear, because sometimes you just have to go into a class blindly with enough in your arsenal, but maybe you're not 100%, and get yourself out of those sticky situations. And, Jonathan famously says to us, one lesson in at the deep end is better than 10 lessons by yourself, learning stuff or trying to think, when that teacher asks, I'll play this, because you're never going to know.
Definitely. So, Matt, you just referenced The Godfather, but he has a website, which is jonathanstill.com, which it provides so much information for newbie pianists and for free. Jonathan funds this website for free to the world, and he puts out his own arrangements of solos, which can be useful for people every now and then. But he did a project a few years ago, and he was going to finish it in a year, and I think it took him 2 years, but it was a hell of an undertaking, and it was a year of ballet cards. And it was his arrangements of music that can be played on a 4/4, on a 3/4, on a 2/4, triple jigs, some weird stuff in there, lots of things. So use the internet, use Jonathan's website particularly for gaining inspiration and just reading some articles that are on there, because
It also gives you things to think about
to
do with ballet and ballet music. We'll just have a random conversation about something, and he'll say, okay, that's possibly a blog post. And then he'll write up about it. So, it sort of gives you food for thought and gives you things to think about.
I remember using Jonathan Still's website more than 10 years ago. And I found it simply through looking for a variation online, and he had a free PDF arrangement that he'd put on there. I think it was a deal, is it Act 3? Swan Lake, I think.
Didn't you used to fangirl over Jonathan before you met him?
Didn't we all? Absolutely, 110%. The first time I met him was in Birmingham. He was up there. He still worked for the RAD.
Yeah.
And I lived round the corner from Elmhurst School of Dance at the time. And he finished doing a recording there for some RAD syllabus or something like that.
With the EMB Philharmonic, was that there?
With the EMB Philharmonic, yeah. Listen to that on episode 21 or episode 24 of the Ballet Piano podcast, where we're in conversation with Jonathan Still. What a back sell that was, ladies and
How do you
gentlemen.
remember the number episode?
You just said it, don't know.
Because I just said it and I hope it's right. But yeah, no, the first time I met Jonathan, I was like, oh my God, I'm meeting this absolute legend of the ballet world. He's been around for...
You just see his name on sheet music, arranged by, written by, arranged by.
Yeah, he's been around.
Theses, documents. He's done chapters for books on music. Yeah.
That's why he's our godfather.
Yeah, he's legendary. Yeah.
But he's so generous with his knowledge. So if you contact him, you'd probably hate us for saying this, but if you contact him, 9 times out of 10, he will get back to you when he's free with something. But utilize his website, because so many blog posts, even like the fear that we all have now that I'm a freelancer in London, I try and leave the correct amount of time to get to a class.
Yeah.
I don't want to get there too early, but obviously I don't want to be late. And there's an article on there about him taking the bus and not the tube, and I was 15 minutes late, and it was devastating.
Yeah. What we'll do is we'll put his phone number on the social media.
And it's not 077. But yeah, no, utilize Jonathan's website. Use it, because he doesn't pay for the traffic, because he's got a good bandwidth on there, but use it.
We can't live without him.
The amount of times I've come out of class and said, oh God, this happened today. He'll have about 3 or 4 stories of when that happened to him. Or he's so knowledgeable and so experienced that he has an analogy for something or a metaphor, or he can just pinpoint specifically why that may have happened, and then you feel better because it's happened to somebody else, someone more experienced.
It's good knowing that we're all in it together, isn't
Yeah.
it? Well, that's what this was like at the start. This little podcast, it was a little bit like therapy, wasn't it? Especially in lockdown.
It still is.
It still is, yeah. But I mean, especially at the start in lockdown when it was 2020 and we were doing stuff.
I think when we started this, we had like 64 years experience between us. That's probably 70 plus now.
Oh dear.
75. Oh no, it's
Because you've been at this for years, times 4.
We must be getting on for 80. This is it's good. But yeah, honestly, use the back episodes and contact us if you've got an issue or if you've thought just even a random question. Akiko's always taking care of Matt on the socials because that's why we put it out. It was literally, we're going to put our souls out here and say, this is what we do.
Well, we wish we can say that any language is good, but realistically, English or Japanese?
English and Japanese is good. And if not,
Can you
we've got
guys
Google Translate.
Speak anything?
I can speak GCSE German.
Oh, good. German too.
Matt, anything?
No.
My son can speak Spanish apparently.
No, he can't. Don't be ridiculous. But yeah, honestly, I think as a newbie pianist, just go in as well with an open mind because it's a weird thing that it's a bit, I think being a ballet pianist is a little bit like learning to drive. It's like you could do a course about playing, and David, maybe it's the same for teaching. You can do a course and you can learn what to do, but you don't learn to drive until you get in that car.
Totally.
And, like go, oh, holy moly, I forgot to use the right indicator when I turn right. Nobody died. It's fine.
Yeah.
I used to just imitate as a pianist, like copy, and then play exactly what they did, just to feel.
Yeah.
And then you play the same tune, and then next time we can try something else, but the same feel.
And look, we've got an episode coming up in the future about how we play what we play and things like that. And we're going to do demonstrations of our repertoire.
Do newbie pianists know about 4 counts intro? Because there's different 4-count intros, isn't there? And it's different number of bars depending on 2, 4, 3, 4, 4, 4.
Now, a bit like there's no right or wrong way to play for a class. There's an expected way, but nothing's right or wrong sort of in the overall arc of this. But the thing that, as a newbie pianist, you must understand, I'm glad you said that because I forgot the hit point, was dancers' counts.
Yeah.
Because we said this in the teacher's episode, use counts. And as a pianist, you must listen to what the teacher is saying. You can't have your head in a book. Or you can, but you've at least got to have your ears out there because the dancers' counts are what are important because it gives you everything. It's like when
Like
the teacher says it,
Yeah.
you know the counts. And also, I'm not going to get into how music is notated in terms of time signatures and things like that because that's not what we're about. But what you need to do,
that's not even really helpful.
it's not helpful because that's just about notation. What you're hearing, you then need to replicate in terms of
the
your
feel
ability and playing the
feel
piano.
of something.
So if you hear and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3, that's your reference point, and then you've got to go through your Rolodex or go through your improvisation skills or go through something and go, what can I come up with that goes a little bit like this?
And it's not 3.
Yeah. So from that you can hear what the teacher wants in the same as like if it's a rond de jambe, 1 and a 2, 1 and a 2. You've got everything in there. So using your ears as a newbie pianist and being adaptable and not being scared. I think some people who I've spoken to over the years, and this is possibly a contentious comment to say, you do not have to be the best pianist to be a good ballet pianist. What you've got to have is empathy, understanding, and good accompanist skills. And you've got to have eye contact with what's going on because that's how, communication, that's how you make it work. I'm not the best pianist by any stretch, but I've managed to...
You have to be able to busk a little bit.
Yeah.
Because that will get you out of a sticky situation.
Even if it's just going cha cha, cha cha, cha cha, cha cha.
I've got a great piece of advice for newbie pianist. Learn the Radetzky March.
Already?
That has got me out of jail so many times I can't even tell you.
Really?
If a teacher sings something at me and I think, oh my God, I've got nothing to play for that, it'll pop into my head and think that is perfect.
Oh.
So learn it, because it's got me out of jail so many times.
I have one more. Mm-hmm. Don't stop playing.
Oh gosh,
just keep playing.
Yeah.
Whatever, if you get lost, whatever, just keep playing, and then teacher will stop you. But don't stop by yourself until teacher stops you.
Unless
You've
got 100% certainty that you're going to finish.
Keep playing.
Talking about getting lost, what happens? How do you know where to pick something up if a teacher stops you in the middle of something and says, "Okay, let's go from where we stopped"? How do you know where you stopped and
in a class exercise?
Yeah, or anything like that, music.
You've got to sort of count a little bit. So I don't count anymore because I've been doing it for forever. But I will know that it was coming up to sort of like the B section. It's like A, B, A. So I'll know, I say, right, I'll give you sort of like 8 counts into where we stopped and I would play the same thing.
So if somebody says like, okay, go from that place, but can you give me a little introduction in? What do you do then? How much of an introduction do you give in?
But normally try to be 4 counts
in. I would give 4 dancers counts. I think we spoke about this in one of our really early episodes, and I'll link it in the podcast notes on the episode as like a little sort of table that I did of dancers counts versus musicians counts, and put it out there. Yeah, if it's a 3/4, it's going to be 4 bars of an introduction, 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4. If it gets to a 4/4 or a 2/4, a 4/4 would usually be 2 bars of an introduction, because we count 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. But ballet dancers and teachers count 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And if it's a 2/4, it's similar to musicians counts, because it's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And so but it's not always the same. It depends on how the teachers sort of count 1 and a 2 and a 1 and a 2, or 1 and a 2 and a 2 and a 2 and a 1 and a 2 and a 2. So it can vary. So that's why you've got to use your ears. But try and do what you think a 4 dancers counts.
Yeah.
The reason I'm asking is because it's very difficult as a dancer to go straight into something without any introduction at all when you're trying to pick something up. It helps if you have some kind of introduction to get back into the rhythm of something before you pick it up.
But if it's like a rep class or something like that, then normally the score says the steps, so that's going to be a reference. And also sometimes like rep, the music can be quite repetitive, and then if it's 4 counts in, you don't know where you are. So when the teacher is explaining something, you kind of look at it where the possible place that you can start, so that they can recognize. So it's not necessarily 4 counts in. It might be 7 counts in. It might be 12 counts in.
And sometimes they just say, "Oh, can have a lead in."
So
you'll just play some music before, so they can latch onto it.
You kind of figure it out while you're waiting that it might be here that I have to start playing.
So if it's in a repertoire class or a solos class, and say like if it's something that's uber repetitive, like the Siegfried variation, Act 3, Swan Lake, which is the same thing 3 times and it's dull, I'd say, okay, right, I'm going to play from the latter end of the seesaw section or whatever the choreography happens to be for that. I'd say, right, I'll play the last 4 counts of that, and then that confirms with me then with the teacher or the coach that I know that I'm going to go into the right place. If it's in an exercise and you've stopped halfway through, I would still go, right, okay, right, I'll give you about an 8 count lead in and hope that it's okay, and hope that I play the same thing and then the teacher can come up with it. But you've got to, I don't know, at least go back a little bit, like almost like, rewind, like it's an old tape deck, rewind, play the same thing, because the teacher will know hopefully what you've played.
Sometimes I've done this before. I don't even know whether this is my call, but I've done it. If a teacher will want 4 counts or 8 counts between groups, and then the second group has come in, but we've had to stop, I will just say 2 counts in because they're already there.
Yeah.
I guess that's our call to make.
Yeah.
And I've said that at the company, when they're ready and they've not needed the whole 8 counts, I'll just say 2 in.
Yeah.
Or if this is the thing, if they don't know that it's 6 in for a polonaise, well, they do it at the company, but if dancers don't know, I'll say 6 in. Yeah. Or I've played 5 4s and I'll say 2 5s in.
Yeah.
So they can hit it 1 and a 2 and 3 and 4, 5, 2 and a 2. So they can hear 2 lots of 5 in. But then also that
confirms it with everybody, doesn't it? That
you're just confirming we're all on the same page.
You're being that team with the teacher and the pianist.
Yeah.
So yeah, don't be scared to voice it.
Yeah, because sometimes the
Yeah.
teachers say, "Oh, well, just a 5 in." I'll say, "Well, actually, I'll give you 2 5s in." I've made that call.
Yeah.
It's gone above the teacher, but I only get out my box when I think it's in the right place, and I think the teacher would appreciate that.
Absolutely, yeah.
I'd never undermine the teacher in that way. If they were confident that 1 5 in is enough, great. But if it's a teacher that's not sure or the dancers don't know, I'll say, "Oh, actually, I'll give you 2 5s in so you can hear it."
Yeah, but you're doing that based on your experience as well. You're not doing it based on
Yeah.
Being
women of
newbie.
prayer. Yeah.
Yeah.
But don't be afraid to ask.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
don't be. It's like, I remember the first Polonaise I ever played for a ballet class. I didn't know they wanted 6 counts in. As far as
Six
as far
counts in.
as far as I knew, everything had a 4 count introduction.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I just try. I think I played a 4 count introduction for a Polonaise. Dun 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 dun. And then started playing the
No,
Chopin.
did you?
Yeah. And then
Oh
I was
my
confused why everybody looked at me like I'd got 3 heads. Because well, that's what we do, isn't it? It's a 4 count introduction.
Wow.
Do you ever...
And then I was swiftly advised that's not what a Polonaise introduction is, but I didn't know.
Yeah.
Do you ever mark your scores like, this is the whatever step it is, so you can pick it up from, it's the C-zone step or something like that? Does
For
that
the
ever help?
variations and things.
Something like that.
Yeah,
variations,
definitely.
yeah.
Definitely.
Especially if something's repetitive, I guess.
Yeah. And they will never tell us, like musicians, okay, let's start with bar 36.
Yeah, let's go from rehearsal mark 37.
So we need to know because
Yeah.
they said, let's start from season. And then
But that
we
goes
need
back
to
to what we said earlier, and I'm still learning this, even though I said that I would learn it even more in 2020, was learning what the steps look like. Because if you can just write in, if you're accompanying a rep class or a variations class, it's this variation. And also, this is another thing to be aware of if you're a newbie pianist who can read brilliantly but doesn't understand class. The markings that you see in front of you may not be relevant to the variation that you're seeing, because unlike music, choreography can change. So there can be 1,001 different choreographic versions of a solo using the same music. So if you're playing for a solos class or a repertoire class or a full call, you need to know whose production you're playing for, not only whose production you're playing for or which company's production you're playing for,
which choreography.
which year it was, because choreography develops over time, doesn't it? And it will be changed over time as styles move onwards and things like that. It's not, in the 60s where 2 and 3 pirouettes were wildly accepted and the crowds would go wild. Now, if it's 2 or 3 pirouettes, anybody can do that. I can see 97 on Instagram. So styles change and choreography changes. So you've got to be aware that just what you see in front of you,
Learn it on the video.
isn't going to.
Thank you, YouTube.
Use
YouTube is great.
and use the communication. Speak to the teacher. If you are a newbie, don't be scared of trying to arrange even just a 5-minute chat with a teacher beforehand, before your first session together, be it a class or a solos class or whatever you're playing for. Even if it's just an RAD class, just say, I'm a newbie here. I'm very excited to do this, but I want you to know that I'm a newbie. Give me this opportunity. And then they may have some advice for you. They may not. They may just be happy to go with what you do, but they may, say, I do this in a different way. I only do exercises 1 to 7 on a Monday, and I do 9 to 23 on a Friday. And then you're okay, right, well, at the start of the week, I only have to worry about 7 exercises from the book.
True.
So
I always say to the teacher that I work with in the week, because one of our classes in the week is a designated solos class. So I just say, well, what solos are you thinking of working on for this term, for the 12 weeks?
Yeah.
Gives you time.
And I think, okay, well, I'll just put them together.
Yeah.
A guy's one, because we have a boy in the class, and then the things that she's thinking about, so I can just familiarize myself.
I think being prepared, be as prepared as you can be. And this is the thing, it's why I love this job, and it's why I was so excited to come back to it, because I don't know many other jobs as a musician where you walk into a room and you don't know what you're going to be asked to play, from 1 minute to the next. And for me, that's what makes the job exciting. Like having come from that classical and jazz background, you would never know what your solos were going to be. You might have an idea if you were playing in a little jazz trio or quartet, but it was still sort of semi-structured. But with the band, you don't know. You might have a brand new teacher you've never heard of who might say they don't want anything jazzy in a class, or you might have, there might be somebody who just says, "Oh no, don't play me any well-known tunes, or don't play me anything from the ballet repertoire." I've heard that for years. I don't want that.
Yeah.
And it does keep you on your toes, and you've got to be adaptable. And that's the thing. I think you will never know everything as a ballet pianist. And, you know, we've said it lots of times already during this episode, and we're only 4 weeks in, that every day and every week is a school week and it's a school day. You never know. And that's what makes it great. You're never perfect. There is always room to
Sunday
improve.
nights when you've got to get up for school the next morning. Oh.
I don't miss getting up for school on a Monday morning.
Every day is a school day.
Well, listen, on the next episode that's going to be available, we're going to be in conversation with, I think, one of the most prolific composers of ballet music who's currently still walking this earth, and that's Philip Feeney. But until then, it's goodbye from me.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Bye, everyone.